Good evening and welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. Thank you for tuning in tonight. I hope you will join us in the room and participate with myself and my guests. And if you got a question or you got a concern, just type it in because this is part of the Mi Gente on Air. It's your show too. And we want to welcome everybody to the room and we thank everybody who will participate. We've got some great guests today. We're talking about MLK Jr. and the regional celebration that is happening tomorrow at SVSU. And Dr. Mamie Thorns from SVSU is here with us tonight, as well as Diane Mahoney, who is the president and CEO of Bay Cities Chamber Regional Community Foundation. It's a new organization that I got a little bit tongue twisted with, but I think we got it, right? So please join us here tonight in the room as we celebrate MLK on Mi Gente on Air.
Welcome to Mi Gente on Air on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online WSGW.com. Now, here is your host, Larry Rodarte.
Good evening and welcome to Mi Gente on Air, where we talk Latino contributions, culture, and concerns here in the Great Lakes Bay region. And issues of diversity and inclusion are very important to our Latino community. Well, this week we know we celebrate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who fought for the civil rights of all people. Every third Monday in January, the nation celebrates the life and work of Dr. King, the Baptist minister and prominent leader in American history. Yesterday, we were encouraged to reflect on the principles of racial equality and nonviolent social change encouraged by Dr. King in his lifetime. It is important to live these principles every day. And today I have as my guest from Saginaw Valley State University, Dr. Mamie Thorns, the Associate Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, as well as Diane Mahoney, who is the President and CEO of the Bay Area Community Foundation. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening, Larry.
Welcome to Mi Gente on Air. I'm so happy to have you here.
Excited to be here.
Well,
thank you.
It's really important, I feel, for my audience to understand, even though this is a show for Latinos in celebrating Latino culture, contributions, and concerns, as we said, part of that concern is, of course, civil rights, right? And so I've asked these ladies to be on the show because tomorrow's a big day at SVSU, and we're really excited about that. So, Dr. Thorns, could you please start with telling us who you are, because you have been behind such a wonderful celebration for 14 years at SVSU. Tell us who you are and what you're doing tomorrow.
Well, first of all, Larry, I want to thank you so much for inviting us to come to be on your show and to share about this exciting program that we have on tomorrow evening. We have invited a legislator, a civil rights activist who is Bakari Seller, to give the keynote address at SVSU on tomorrow at 7 p.m.
And there's his picture.
Yes. And Bakari, for many people maybe in your audience as well as throughout the region, may not know who he is. He's a political analyst. He's an activist and a former South Carolina representative. We are so blessed and so happy that he accepted the invitation to come and be a part of this event. So instead of giving a keynote speak, we're going to have a fireside chat with him.
Yes.
And where we have John Kaczynski, who is our governmental relations executive director of governmental and community affairs, will moderate this session. And we will also take some questions from some of our students. So we think it's going to be a very exciting time for this young, energetic, role model, political activist. And many of you have probably seen him on CNN
Mhm.
And we're just looking forward to having that courageous conversation with him on tomorrow evening.
Oh, it's going to be a good conversation, but I know that you are very humble, Mamie, but I do want people to know who Dr. Mamie Thorns is. And many of my followers that are associated with the Unión Cívica Mexicana, we do know Mamie, but I want everyone else to please know a little bit about Mamie Thorns.
Well, I work at Saginaw Valley State University, and I'm blessed to have been at Saginaw Valley for 20 years,
Wow.
serving as a chief diversity officer. And I have the opportunity to work with you, Larry, and some of the other leaders in our community, whether it's African American or Latinos, business people, where we come together and we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. And I know the council is very excited about us coming together so we can meet our new president.
Yes.
And we're excited about scheduling that event to have them. But I enjoy what I do at SVSU. It allows me an opportunity to work in the community, as well as to work with great people like Diane and Renee Johnston and Sharon Morton on this great MLK celebration. So I'm here to serve, and I truly enjoy what I do.
Well, we really enjoy having you in our community, Dr.
Thank you.
Thorns, very much so.
Thank
And we
you.
also have Diane Mahoney here. She is the CEO, president of the Bay Area Community Foundation. Can you give us a little bit about you, Diane, and how are you involved in this MLK celebration?
Sure. So I've been with the Bay Area Community Foundation for the past 5 years. And one of my very first events in that role was being able to work on this event with Mamie. I started in December, and come that January, we were kicking off this event. And it is wonderful because it's about lifting up all voices.
Yes.
And Dr. King was about the common humanity and love and compassion and making sure that no one is marginalized.
Right.
Right.
And what a great day. It's a fun day.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So the collaboration of your work, what has that been for you both in terms of, with your foundation? Because I know that, like I said earlier, Mamie's been doing this program for 14 years at SVSU. How did you get involved with it through the foundation?
Yep. So the community foundations back in 2005 were doing MLK scholarships.
Mhm.
And they were doing it collectively, but also individually in our communities. And so partnering up with Saginaw Valley State University and Delta College provided our 3 organizations. So the Midland Area Community Foundation, the Saginaw Community Foundation, as well as ours, to come together and really expand this on a regional level. So all of us that have been here in the community, I lived in the Saginaw community for 25, 30 years before moving to Bay 5 years ago. We all understand that we are truly one region.
Yes.
And this event really allows that to happen.
Right.
And I know that many students have received the scholarships
Mhm.
under the MLK celebration. And I've seen where they read parts of Dr. King's speeches, and you put on a really nice program, Amy. Really, you do.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about that and what can we expect tomorrow night?
Diane, you want to talk about the scholarship?
Absolutely. So we award 15 $1,000 scholarships to students from our 3 communities. It is for them to go on for post-secondary education. So Delta College, SVSU, we have students that are going to be going to SVSU. But the video that you're talking about, Dr. Eric Gardner and Kenneth Jolly, both professors at SVSU, provide a speech that the students really get to dig into. And they film a video that will air that evening at the event. It's produced by Delta College. And this year, they're doing excerpts from The Negro and the American Dream, which was a speech Dr. King gave in 1960.
1960, yes.
Yes.
And it's so important to relive those speeches,
Yes.
really, because, we get caught up in life and everyday life here. And, here in these last 3 years under a pandemic and all, it's difficult to sometimes always follow that lead unless it's put in before your face. And I think that
Right.
at your program, when you hear these students and they talk and they really deep dive into that speech, it really makes you say, Yes, I forgot about that. Or, it makes
Or
you
I remember.
relive that.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes. And it's wonderful. I mean, they do such a great job, whoever puts that together. I know you mentioned some names, but it's really something I think that everybody in our community should be attending. So, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. at SVSU. If you're not doing anything, you do have to register though, right?
Well, you don't have to, Larry.
Oh, okay.
I won't turn anyone away. Okay. So if you have the opportunity to go on our website and register, that would be great. We just want to make sure that we have the staff there that can accommodate a large crowd. We are expecting a large crowd, and we
Yeah.
want to make sure that we can accommodate all of our guests. So if I have to open up some extra rooms on the second floor of Curtis, I want to be ready to do that.
Yes, yes. And so Bakari Sellers,
Yes.
he has a legacy. His father was a civil rights leader.
Yes.
Cleveland Sellers, and a powerful, powerful voice for equality, especially in the 60s and in the 70s. Tell us a little bit about, what your expectations are going to be, because you got a feel for this, and you know that this is going to be a great speaker. And like you said, kind of a fireside chat.
Yes.
And I think it's going to really inspire people.
Well, first of all, our theme is working together. In order to keep the dream alive, we really have to work together. We just cannot have one region over here working on this and one we can do so much more if we come together and work together. And so I'm hoping that Bakari will give us some tools and techniques on how do we do that, or how do we continue to do that. But I also want him to speak to our young people. We will have students there from the political science department. And I want him to speak to those young people and tell them what can they do to keep the dream alive. I want him to also speak to us at our age. It's not too late for us to keep the dream alive. And what can we do to continue to encourage and uplift our young people? And I think that because he is young, he is a great role model. And because of his parents and learning from them about the civil rights movement, I think he will have a strong message.
Yeah. He's kind of lived
for
it.
all of us.
He's kind of lived it through his parents, and that's wonderful. Now he also, he is a contemporary civil rights and worker with President Obama, and as well as Benjamin Crump, U.S. Representative James Clyburn.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, he really, and then he's an analyst on CNN. I mean, this guy is really somebody that we can really appreciate here in the Great Lakes Bay region, coming to our area tomorrow for the MLK Jr. celebration at SVSU. And then you also have the Drum Major Awards that are coming up that celebrate, people in our community, members of the community who advanced Dr. King's vision through their community involvement. And one of my good friends who works at the Great Lakes Bay Health Centers, Angela. I saw her at the gas station the other day, and she very humble, didn't tell me anything about this.
Very humble.
And, I think that's wonderful. But tell us about those individuals who are going to be awarded.
Well, thank you so much. I think this is our 8th year with the Drum Major Award. And, I wanted to add something to our Great Lakes Bay Regional Martin Luther King celebration. And I wanted us to look at individuals in our region. So I said, Diane, who in your region is doing something to keep the dream alive? And they may not ever get recognized. They're the quiet ones, but they do a lot. And I said the same thing to Sharon and Renee. Mm-hmm. So we all came up with one name from each region, and we chose those 3 individuals. So Angela, for example, is from the Saginaw area. And Larry, you know what she has done during the pandemic with working with church groups and nonprofits all in the, to make sure that we were able to get our shots and get the information that we needed. Because as you well know, people of color in the community were very skeptical about getting the shot. And I was one. Mm-hmm. And so it took a lot of reading and studying for me to do it. And so we want to just say to Angela, we appreciate what you're doing. The community appreciates what you're doing. And if Dr. King was here, he would say to you, Angela, thank you and continue to keep up the good work. The same thing within Midland, we have Smallwood Holloman, yes, who has done a lot, not only just in the Midland region, but also in the Saginaw area as well. And he's served on the Saginaw Community Foundation. He's worked very closely with the Midland Community Foundation. And so we want to say to him, keep up the good work and thank you for what you're doing. And then Diane, tell us a little about your nominee.
Sure. Pastor Philip Johnson is the gentleman who will be receiving it for Bay County. And he does a lot of prison-based ministry. So you talk about a completely disenfranchised group. And he had been going into the jails and working with law enforcement and trying to engage with these individuals so that when they are released back into our communities, they have positive connections. So he's brought in members of his congregation. And then through all of those conversations, he realized that it wasn't a moment or a decision they made as an adults that landed them there. I mean, that might have been a specific situation or moment in time, but it found its seeds way back in childhood, when they were experiencing adverse childhood experiences. And so in light of that, he actually has developed youth-related programming related to that. And he really... To me, he epitomizes Dr. King's use of nonviolence and the ability to build bridges, between law enforcement and communities that often have suffered some harm. Let's be honest, at those hands of a few. So trying to build those bridges. So we're incredibly excited to be able to honor him.
Well, we did have Angela here, Williams, on Mi Gente on Air. She was one of our very first guests when we started the show. And so I've been familiar with her for about 2 years because this is our third year now. And we just hit it off great. And like you said, she really was an informant for the people of color, especially within our Latino community. And she helped head up what they were doing at St. Joe's by making available the shots, so that people could be more trusting to find an environment that they trusted, St. Joe's Catholic Church, with the Latino community. And so she was really important. And I remember having discussions with her as well as on the show. And so I'm really happy to see that, she is one of the recipients, because it's really important to recognize those people, like you say, that sometimes, they're not looking for any notoriety, and it's important to work and collaborate. And I think that's what we're doing tonight here. And, when I talk about Mi Gente on Air in this show and who we're targeting, but we're also shifting a little to say, you know what, we have to bring awareness and be more inclusive to everybody, because what's happening tomorrow is a great thing for the Great Lakes Bay region. And I love seeing you guys working together.
Well, and Larry, I will say this, when Diane brought forward Pastor Johnson's name, I had never heard of him. Wow. And I'm like, okay, tell me more about this individual. And the more she shared, I go, yes, we need to tell our region about the work that he's doing. Like I said, sometimes the little people that are on the level down here don't get recognized. And they're not doing it to get recognized. They're not doing it for that. But Dr. King was about everybody. He could hang with the CEOs, and he can hang with the garbage workers, and he could hang with everybody. And so it's just so important to see the work that many people are doing in our region that never gets recognized for the work that they're doing.
Absolutely. And so tomorrow we're all excited because it starts at 7 p.m. And where's the location for this event, Mamie?
Malcolm Field Theater, which is in Curtis Hall. So if you come to Curtis Hall, we will have some SVSU greeters there that will direct you to the theater. And doors open at 6:30. I suggest that you get there no later than 6:30. And the program will start at 7 p.m. And Larry, let me tell you who our MC will be. Colette Boyd
Oh,
from
Colette.
TV5 will
There you
be
go.
our MC, and we have a partnership with TV5,
Mhm.
and Colette has been a part of our MLK program and does a wonderful job, and we really do appreciate the work that she does.
Yeah, she is awesome. We had her as one of our celebrity judges for the 12th annual Tamale Taste Off last month in
Oh,
December at Newbell Catholic High School. And she loved that being
yes.
able to
Mhm.
taste 12 different tamales. Can you imagine? So that's wonderful. And I consider her a good friend now because she's always, got that warmth and that smile,
Mhm.
and she welcomes you to her program. And, she is really an information vehicle that we desperately need in this community for the different events that we do have, like
Right.
MLK,
Right.
as well as like Cinco de Mayo. I was on the program dressed in a calavera face for Dia de los Muertos with the skeleton
Mhm.
face
Oh,
and all.
yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
walked
Mhm.
in,
Yeah.
and she and the news weather guy, they didn't even recognize me. They didn't even know who was walking in, but it was me. But speaking of good friends, we've got Bridget Luby Staffolino here. She says, "Hey, Larry, Mamie, Diane, what
Oh,
a
Bridget.
great discussion."
Oh, Bridget, thank you.
So thank
And
you,
thank you to
thank you.
Joe
So-
Credit
That's
Union
Joe
for a
Craig.
sponsorship.
Yes. Thank
one,
you.
one of the sponsors,
Yes,
huh?
she's one of our great sponsors.
Well, I think, Bridget is one of those people who is a big cheerleader
Yes, she
for
is.
Saginaw, in the Great
Yes,
Lakes Bay region.
yes.
And so, I consider you guys as well that way because you're always making things happen in the community. And I remember the last time Diane and I
Yeah.
saw each other was on a run with Bridget. Do you
Yes,
remember that? And
I
I can't
do.
believe it's
Oh,
been more
my
than
goodness.
5 years.
I know.
My
I
God,
know.
time has just flown.
Ah.
Through the pandemic and all, we just like
Mhm.
lost these years. But
Mhm.
it's Bridget's got hearts on the screen here, but she's a true friend to the community.
Yes, she is.
And so when we talk about the importance of celebrating MLK Jr. in the nation, why is it so important still, Mamie, today? Coming from you, who's been involved, these last 4 years in putting on this program at Saginaw Valley, why is it still important today for us to celebrate MLK Jr.?
Well, Larry, as you know, we are in some challenging times. We are even just the discussion of diversity, equity, and inclusion is being excluded in some states.
Mm-hmm.
We 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 still are working on Dr. King's dream. We're not there yet. We are making progress. We're getting there. And so we have to continue to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion and why it's important to this upcoming generation as well as our generation. It's easy for us to come together on Martin Luther King Day and say, yes, I believe what Dr. King did, and yes, we're going to do this here. But we need to be doing that 365 days a year.
Yes.
Every day we should be thinking about the dream. Every day we should be reaching toward that dream of making sure that all voices are heard and that all voices are at the table, that we are inclusive, that no one is left behind, that we're feeding the hungry, we're taking care of our brothers and sisters, we are expressing love, we are expressing gratitude. It's an everyday thing that we have to continue to work on.
Yes. Everything we're called to do as humans on this planet.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I have to give a shout out to WSGW at this time, because I think what you're talking about there is exactly why we have this program here, Gente on Air, to be able to have that voice at the table, to have a Latino voice at the greater table within our community, so that there is more of an awareness of events that we have and celebrate within our community. And so, I'm really thankful for that, because now we're in our 3rd year, believe it or not.
Wow.
Like I said, where does time fly?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
Jonathan, my producer, he is learning so much about our Latino culture and our foods. And I tell everybody every week he's learning about elotes and potitos.
Oh,
And,
wow.
right,
Yeah.
Jonathan, what do you have to say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's been great. It's been a great experience, and it's definitely been educational, to say the least.
Yes.
Well, we thank you for producing the show, because it's really important to have somebody who believes in what we're doing. And I can
Absolutely.
honestly say that Jonathan does, and he's done a really good job. So we're going to go into commercial, and then we're going to come back and talk more about the MLK celebration at SVSU tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And we got Dr. Mamie Thorns here from SVSU, as well as Diane Mahoney from the Bay Area Community Foundation. I want to say Chamber of Commerce. That's why I keep messing it up. But we'll be right back on Mi Gente on Air.
You're listening to Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.
So there you have it. We are here on Mi Gente on Air on the live stream, and we want to welcome everybody to come on into the room. We've got some great guests who are talking about Dr. Martin Luther King and what he means to our nation, as well as the celebration that's happening at SVSU tomorrow. So if you've got a question, you want to make a comment, now's the time, because, you know, we want to make sure that you're part of the show as well. Mi Gente on Air, my people on air, and we want to make sure that we bring awareness to the greater community of what we're doing locally. And I've got a little bit of a cough still, as I did last week. So we're going to come right back into the show in a few minutes.
This is Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.
Welcome back, Mi Gente. I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and we are here in the Alpha Media Studios on WSGW 100.5 FM and 790 AM. And my guests today are Dr. Mamie Thorns. Everybody knows Mamie over at SVSU. I know a lot of people in our community do. And we also have Diane Mahoney, who is now CEO, president of the Bay Area Community Foundation. So thank you, ladies, again, for being on the show. It's so important as we talk about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I'm old enough to remember his assassination, believe it or not. And it's really important that we bring his life and legacy to the forefront, especially for the younger generation. I don't think we have seen the younger generation galvanized as it was in the 60s during those years in 1968, 1969, when even Bobby Kennedy was assassinated the same year as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But I don't think we've seen them galvanized like we have in the last few years, especially in 2020 after George Floyd passed away. Mm-hmm. It is important as a community that we recognize truly, you know, the civil rights legacy that we have, and, you know, the riots that happened down in Detroit that almost spilled over into Saginaw, you know, with Henry Marsh as the mayor at the time. I mean, there's a lot of history there. And so I think it's important to celebrate that legacy with programs like you're doing over at SVSU. It's so important. And for you, Mamie, what do you want those who are in attendance to get from this program tomorrow night? Well, if you could express it to us and to my listeners, what do you want them to get out of this?
How much time do I have? Well, I want people to come and be a part of the celebration. I want people to take away one or two things from our speaker that they can implement in their own community, whether it's in their church or whether it's in their school. I know we will have educators there where they can take something back to their classroom. As a former teacher, K-12 teacher, it was so important for me to teach my students about who Dr. King was and what he stood for. And every year, I always chose a student in my class who could recite, "I Have the Dream" speech. We have to continue to tell our young people the story. We have to tell our young people about the civil rights movement. We have to continue to educate our students about why it is important and why is Dr. King holiday celebrated. It's not just a day off to do nothing,
Right.
but we as the adults, we have to teach our young people about that. One of the things that I'm so grateful at SVSU, and I give a shout out to our library there, they have lots of resources for our students and for our faculty. And they have a MLK display up so that faculty members who want materials about Dr. King and some of the teaching, as well as, the King Center where you can get lots of resources. So I want people to walk away feeling good about what they heard, the fellowship, and then also maybe take one or two ideas and go back and implement it in their own community or in their school or on their church. We have to keep the dream alive. We can't let it die tomorrow night. When we close that program, we have the next day we wake up, we have to continue to find ways to keep the dream alive.
Yes. And I think it's so important to bring that awareness to everybody. And like you say, we can't just have tomorrow happen or yesterday with the holiday and then just go on and not think about what the true meaning of it is and how we as citizens can move forward to, bringing the fruits of that dream alive in our communities. And Diane, what would you say with your involvement with this program? What awareness have you learned from it, and what has inspired you to be involved at the level that you are?
And to keep on being involved.
Exactly. I would say the Bay County community is really on a journey towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when community foundations as a field, we are told to be neutral. And, you don't take stands on things. We don't get political. We're there for everyone. And when George Floyd happened, I have 3 children in their 20s. And when you talked about the youth of this generation getting engaged on a level that in my generation, we didn't. I never went on a march or a protest. It just wasn't a part of our scene when we were growing up. But when George Floyd happened, and it obviously was a topic of intense discussion in our family, and thought about, okay, what do we need to do? And I felt very personally called to do something. But in my profession, it's like, no, we're neutral. And so our staff at the foundation had some conversation. Obviously, we're all remote, so we're connected via our computers, which technology does not inhibit progress in this space. But we had a conversation about what do we want to do. And without any hesitation, everyone said we need to do something, but we don't want it to be words. We don't want it just to be, we're going to issue a statement that this is wrong, because how could anyone disagree with that having been a wrong action? And so we went to our board and they said, we support this work. And so we began this journey, because sometimes being neutral, when you have to take a stand, there is right and wrong, and we have to be willing to confront things. And I'm going to misquote him because I am not Dr. Martin Luther King. I will never have his gifts. But, he said something along the lines of, it's easy to do the right thing when life is easy. But when you're confronted with challenge and controversy and being willing to go out there and say, okay, we're drawing the line and this is unacceptable, and we are going to be a part of the solution. We're not going to be talking heads that sit around a board table. It is the little actions that we take day in and day out when we see someone mistreated.
Say some.
Because they don't have the same amount of money, or they look different, or their faith is different. That is unacceptable, and we can give voice and be an ally to them in those moments.
Amen,
Diane.
That was wonderful. Nicely said. And I remember in 2020 when the marches were happening, and even in Saginaw, and we most of us felt compelled to do something. And like you said, I was too young to participate in the marches or whatever back in the 60s, but as I went and I crossed the bridge, the Court Street Bridge, and I ended up there by the zoo, and there was a gathering of people that were marching in Saginaw after George Floyd had passed away. And when I looked around and I saw the diversity that was there, I was on fire, you know. And there were so many young people.
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah.
younger
That's
generation,
true.
they see it for what it is.
They do.
You know, and I don't know if there were that many older people there. I think I was probably one of the older ones, but I just felt so rejuvenated by the cause, you know, that there was hope, there was hope, because I seen all these young people. And so I think that what you've said tonight, Diane, as well as Mamie, you know, it's really bringing that awareness that we do have to do something.
Right.
We have to be the stewards of the walk. We have to walk the walk, you know, and it's so nice to see that SVSU is willing, you know, to play a part in this. And I think we have to let everybody know who the new president is on this program because it's so important. He is the first person of color to be the president at Saginaw Valley State University. He is Dr. George Grant Jr. And I know that he's going to do a great job. You know, when you see somebody, and I have never met him, but you see him and you kind of get that feeling, you know, and there's this aura around him. So Mamie, tell us, there's this picture on the screen. Tell us about Dr. George Grant Jr.
Well, he is an amazing president, and we are so blessed that our Board of Trustees chose him to be the 5th president at Saginaw Valley State University. I've had the privilege to, in the last couple of weeks, to work with him and spend some time with him. He and his wife, both Beverly, are so glad to be here in our community. And he's excited. Yesterday, he participated in the Alpha Phi Alpha march and at the luncheon. And he and his wife are very excited to be in our region and in our community. And so many people are contacting him and want to meet him and get to know him. And it's going to take some time.
Yes.
But if you come tomorrow at the program at 7 p.m., after the program, we're going to have a reception.
All right.
And you will have a chance. You may not have a chance to have a counseling session with him, but you will have an opportunity to shake his hand and meet him face to face. So we're very excited about where he will take SVSU to the next level. And we've had some great presidents in the past.
Yes, we have.
And so now we need to, as who is that? One of the TV guys says, let's kick it up another notch. So I think that because SVSU has so much to offer, we have such a wonderful story that we just have a lot to share. And he's going to help us to share the good work that we're doing and build on the work that we have been working on. So we're excited about Dr. Grant. And I don't want to tell everything about him. Because we do want people to meet him and get to know him. His bio is on our website. So if anyone would like to dive in and learn a little bit more about him. But one thing that I can tell you about him, he cares about our students and he listens, Larry. We had our first staff meeting last week. And he wanted to know from us, what do we want to see? What do we want to do? What ideas, what suggestions do we have? And so I think everyone at SVSU is very excited and looking forward to working with him.
Well, I, for one, am excited as well. I remember a few years back, and it spoke volumes when the past president, Dr. Don Bashan,
Yes.
I think he was new in the position, and you had him out there at the Cinco de Mayo parade in an old car, 50s car from Dave Gomez. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that. And that really meant something
Yeah.
because here we had the new president of Saginaw Valley State University in our Cinco de Mayo parade.
Yes.
So the invitation is there for
Yes,
this the
absolutely.
44th annual Cinco de
Yes.
Mayo happening in May 6th.
Okay.
And
yes.
we would
yes.
love to have him there as well. You know, how do the students at SVSU get involved in the celebration and in the work that you're doing? Important question.
Yeah, that is. We have students that will, political science students will be involved in the program on tomorrow night. We have some students that are serving as hosts and hostesses. We have students that are helping with our programs and will be passing out program and assisting and helping wherever. I think what I would really like, and many of our faculty members are doing this, they are encouraging the students to come to the program. They are encouraging the students to write reflection papers on the program. And we're just encouraging all of the organizations at SVSU. I know some students have classes tomorrow night, but what we're hoping is that perhaps we can share the video with other students. But if any students that are listening and would like to join our committee, Diane, we welcome them, you know. And Larry, that's one of the great things about our committee or our planning committee is that we have a very diverse group. We have representation from all three regions. We have faculty members on our committee, and we have some students, and we would like to get more students involved. So if there are students out there who would like to get more involved, contact me, Office of Diversity Program, and we will make sure we will find a spot for them on our committee.
Well, through this program and through my social media, I'm going to put the word out there. I want to see more people involved. And, you know, Diane,
yes,
you involved with the scholarship for these students. Is there any student, you don't have to give names, but maybe an example of of their involvement with MLK, and tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's really important as well.
So all of these students, what really impressed me about them was that they're not just giving lip service to the values that Dr. King espoused. You know, one student started a DEI book club within her school.
Wow.
And you know that there's this whole movement in the country now to ban books, right? So that can be viewed as being very risky. And when they had their first book discussion, there was just a handful of kids, and it just keeps growing and growing. Another student, even just something as simple as being on the sports field and hearing slurs, you know, directed towards other people, and being strong enough to say to your teammates, that is not okay. And that's not going to be what our team is for, or what our team is going to stand for. So those simple everyday actions that, unless we can start having that kind of conversation, or I don't want to use the word confrontation, but, you know, calling out of behaviors that do not advance us. And these students are willing to do that. And that gives me hope. I think as adults, if we just get out of their way, these younger students are going to figure it out.
Right.
Jonathan, I'm going to get out of your way. Well, you know, Angela Blanco, she's at the Unión Cívica Mexicana. She says, congratulations to you all and SVSU on a beautiful event. Has anyone put in motion a travel event in honor of MLK Jr. to visit the elementary schools? My 9-year-old niece has been talking and asking many questions. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wow.
Wow. That is.
Would you like to join our committee and help us next year?
And you know what? We can make it happen. You know, we got some magic, Larry. So, but I love that idea.
You know, I sit on the board for the Castle Museum, and they have that history mobile. And that is something that I know that many of the schools are involved with in the Great Lakes Bay region and the counties. And I think that would be something maybe we could look at in the future, because what better way than to go to them, to go to the students. And great suggestion, Angela Blanco. Thank you so much for that. And I wonder, how does the effort to increase diversity, equity, inclusion look like in our entire region from your perspective, Mamie, and yours, Diane?
Mhm.
How does it look? I mean, obviously, since 2020, we know that the pendulum has shifted.
Mhm.
And that's something that I have seen and have been aware of, because, I went to Michigan State University and then lived in the Detroit region for 10 years and then came back to Saginaw.
Mhm.
And this was in the late 90s when I came back. And I remember thinking, my God, we are like in the 60s in some instances. And, so where are we now today? And in your perspective, how far have we come?
Well, I've only been here since 1995, but I have worked with the Saginaw Community Foundation, and I've gotten to know Diane
Mm-hmm.
and the Babe and Midland. These community foundations are having courageous conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know Diane, and she can speak to it, of what not only what you've been doing. You had a survey. You have been listening to your constituents in your community to find out what they want to do. I know Midland also, and Saginaw. We're working on a diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a committee that's working. So what I see is the conversation has elevated, and I see where people really want to get involved and they want to do something. They just don't want to sit around and talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. They want to actually speak up, speak out, and do something. Now, sometimes that, Larry, means having awareness session. Maybe it's having seminars. Maybe it's having workshops or training, sending our employees or just sitting around having some conversations. We do that, Diane and Sharon and Renee, and we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, what it means to us, and what can we be doing more in our community. Now, we're not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make mistakes on this journey, and it's truly a journey that we're on. But as Maya Angelou said, when we know better, we do better. And so, but Diane, from your perspective, who've been here longer than I have, you could probably speak more to it.
Well, I'm going to speak specific to Bay County because that's what we're doing. For our organization, we actually pulled together a collaborative of people after the George Floyd that said, okay, what could we do here?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're really fired up and you're motivated and you want to run a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
And Daryl Newton, who is president of Bay City's NAACP, said to me, Diane, this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes.
Like, let's find a task and let's just go after it. So we, when we first reached out to some potential community partners, it was in the midst of COVID, and some people are like, we're so buried in COVID, right? They didn't want to come to the table.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we launched a survey that Mamie was referencing. And what we were trying to do was benchmark what is the status of diversity, equity, and inclusion in Bay County. We actually contracted with some researchers out of SVSU. And by the time we were through that survey process, we were getting ready to launch it publicly. We had 19 different organizations within the community that were taking part. I will tell you the final draft of that report was in my mailbox today.
Wow.
So
nice.
Very excited about getting ready to release that. And really, it's a resource for the community to understand. For us to decide where we need to go, we have to know where we're at.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're just,
all over the place.
All over the place.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then for us organizationally, as individuals, right? Because humans make up organizations. So we all have been on our personal journeys. We all did the IDI assessments to
Mhm.
find out where we are on the spectrum of inclusion. And we've been working on that for a year. And then we're also organizationally looking at ourselves. Are we really walking the walk,
Yeah.
or are we just
Yeah.
saying that?
And that's so important. I think
Mhm.
everybody, we all have to, sometimes there's an unconscious bias that we have to
Oh, yeah.
sometimes look at.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think that's really important. I think it's wonderful to hear that, Diane.
Mhm.
Really, it
Yeah.
is. And we've run out of time. We've only got a minute here left on the
Holy
show.
smokes.
But I
No,
want
it's
to
just
tell
getting
everybody.
started.
I know. I want to tell everybody. Well-known Detroit pastor and gospel artist Marvin
yes,
Winans
Yes.
will be performing at the Martin
Yes.
Luther King Jr. celebration tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at SVSU's Malcolm Field Hall Theater. Excuse
Yes.
me, January 18th, Wednesday. And I'm so glad to have talked to both of you ladies because
Same
I've
here.
been inspired. I have learned. We've brought awareness with this show, with having you as our guest, and that's what it's all about, that partnering and that collaboration, and we can do some great things. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Mamie Thorns. Thank you, Diane Mahoney, and we will see you next week here on Mi Gente on Air. Hasta luego. Whenever we have great conversation, we always lose track of time. And I think that's what kind of happened here tonight. And didn't I tell you it goes fast?
Yeah.
But I want to give Dr. Thorns the ability to talk a little bit about Marvin Winans because he is such a his family is
Yes.
such a celebrated musical group. Please tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that, which is he's coming tomorrow.
Yes, Pastor Marvin Winan. We invited him to come, and he is going to perform during our program. And guess who's going to introduce him tomorrow night? Vicki Hill. And so I think all of us out there who know who Vicki Hill is, she's on 107 on
Yes.
Sunday morning. And we're just really excited that we're adding another element to our program.
Great entertainment. Yes.
And Larry, the other piece that I wanted to say also about this region celebration, it's truly a region. And
Mhm.
it is beautiful to see. It's a diverse audience,
Yes.
and it's diverse committee. It's a diverse people on the program. And so Marvin Winan, Pastor Winan, is just going to add the icing to the cake on our program. And so we all are looking forward to a wonderful program. And I'm hoping that we'll get out of there on time. But we know that people will want to meet and greet them, as well as our pastor, as our president, and as well as our guest speaker.
Yeah, you got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Really? That's awesome.
And our scholarship recipient and the drum
Yes.
major award. So there's something for everybody
Yeah.
tomorrow night.
And that video I know is going to be outstanding with them as the
Oh, yeah.
scholarship recipient.
It is. It's awesome.
I'm excited. I will be there. Definitely. I may be a little late, but I will definitely be there. So thank you everybody again for the comments. And Angela Blanco, she made that comment about the elementary schools, a visit with
Yes.
MLK. And her sister's on here as well. And she says, Angela Blanco just fell off her chair because, she never wants to volunteer. No, just kidding. But she says, great show, ladies. God bless.
Thank you.
So
Thank
we're going
you
to
so
end
much.
on that. Everybody, thank you so much again for tuning in. And we'll see you next week on Mi Gente on Air.